Welcome to the Johns Hopkins School of Education to the online EdD program. I'm Dr. Laura Flores-Shaw. I'm the interim director of the program. I'm also a graduate of the program. I was actually in the very first 2013 cohort. It's very pleased to be helping to usher in the kind of new iteration of the program, which is what we're going to be talking about today. I have with me today Dr. Christy Eith. Dr. Eith she teaches research methods, and she's a cohort lead, so she has been doing a lot of student support over the years. We also have Dr. Mary Ann Park. Why did I call you Frank? Mary Fran Park. That's what I did. Yeah. So Dr. Park is actually walking at graduation next month. So Dr. Satchel, are you walking as well? Or did you? Yes. Okay. Oh my goodness. So two graduates of our program. Dr. Park is actually a program mentor, so another source of support to students. And Dr. Satchel works with Dr. Quaynor in our writing clinic, which is a huge support to our students, all students, frankly. So what we're going to do today is, first, what I want to do is kind of give you an overview of the program, so you know what it is you're going to be walking into. And then we can have a more informal Q&A discussion around things. Okay. And so I'm going to share my screen. So you are coming into a very innovative program, very innovative. We are doing things that no other EdD program is doing. And we are working from a dossier perspective rather than a traditional dissertation perspective. And the framework we're using is Boyer's Scholarship Reconsidered. And this is actually a framework that was developed for faculty to consider other types of scholarship that we do, as opposed to just traditional collection of empirical research. And we are using this framework for you all, for our students. And essentially, through this dossier, the dossier is not so much a product as it sort of is a term for the journey over these next 4 years. And there are 3 main projects that students will engage in. And the first year is Project 1. And that's a scholarship of integration. So this is where you're looking at identifying and describing factors relevant to your problem of practice. Now, we don't expect you to have a fully developed problem of practice when you come in. Nobody does. I didn't. The first year is really about coming to understand what your problem of practice is through review of the literature. And I'm going to tell you too that everybody comes in with thinking that they know what their problem is and thinking that they know how to solve it. Everybody. There's not one student who hasn't come into this program with that mindset. So the first year, we're really working on recalibrating your mindset so that you're recognizing that you don't know what you don't know. And so you're going to explore. And this is really more from a scholarly type of perspective. And we're going to have you all examine your problem of practice using systems thinking, which is also really going to change your thinking in general. And it's going to be, we are introducing a very systematic way of teaching systems thinking that we will use throughout the program. The second project, you have one of 2 options. So the first year, everyone's doing a scholarship of integration because you all have to move away from solution being solution focused to focusing on exploration of the problem. But after you've done that exploration, and you now have a better understanding of what your problem of practice really is, and it really does change for a lot of people. I came in thinking my problem of practice was one thing, and it turned out to be something totally different. But in any case, in year 2, you have a choice. And as a Montessori educator, I love choices for students. So you can choose between a scholarship of application, which is demonstrating the application of research to practice in some way. With this choice, you are considering how the research perpetuates and or disrupts oppression. You're critiquing relevant systems, structures, institutions, and you're determining avenues to effectively disseminate evidence to a wider audience and stakeholder group. And so some examples of this could be a historical analysis of a topic, a curriculum creation, community organization, an autoethnography, instructional pedagogy, all kinds of things. The other option that you have is a scholarship of teaching, and this is about the development and improvement of pedagogical practices. So here you'll examine teaching processes and assessments to improve practice. And this also could be an autoethnography of your own teaching, some innovative teaching materials, curricular development of a new pedagogical framework. So you have some options there for year 2. And then year 3, the third option for the third project, your choice is whatever you didn't choose for project number 2 for year 2, and then a scholarship of discovery. And this is more of the traditional, I'm going to go out in the field and I'm going to collect empirical data. So this is a search for new knowledge. And so this is where you'll conduct evidence-based research that leads to knowledge creation. For all of these projects, we are not requiring that they be presented in scholarly writing. You have the opportunity here to really think about, who do I want to communicate to? Who are my constituents? And what's the best modality in which to communicate to them? Because scholarly writing, essentially, it's just writing for other academics. And if you really want to, I mean, this program is about bridging research with practice in the real world in an applied way. And so we really want to give students the opportunity to consider, maybe a video is more accessible to people, maybe a podcast with 10 episodes is more accessible. Maybe a series of white papers. Maybe I'm going to write a book for practitioners in my field. And also understand too, when I say in my field, I'm not just thinking about the field of education, but we often have students who come to us and they are not in education, but learning happens everywhere. So we can apply research to all different kinds of learning contexts. They need not be in a K-12 and just in a K-12 or higher education setting. And one thing that I think we all really love about this opportunity to present work in modalities other than scholarly writing is that it really allows us as a program to walk our talk on social justice. Because when you privilege one form of communication over others, well, it's kind of upholding white supremacy culture. And so we don't want to privilege one form of communication. We want to recognize that all forms of communication are valid. It's what you have to say. It's like really, really important. And then you'll be, with these projects, you'll tie all of these pieces together with an executive summary and a final reflection. where you will reflect on your doctoral dossier journey. And so what this looks like in practice, so prepare to be overwhelmed here. This is a graphic of the program over 4 years. The program used to be 3 years. It was a lot in 3 years in its old iteration. And we really want in this new iteration to give students more thinking time, essentially. And so there's still going to be, students will still take 2 courses each semester, but there's going to be some flexibility in summer. So if you look in the summer column with the blue rectangles there, that's when you'll take either an area of interest course or an elective. So area of interest formerly used to be specializations. We have done away with the idea of specializations because it doesn't actually promote a systems perspective of the world. So we really want to, again, walk the talk. We can't just talk about systems and systems thinking without assuring that we're providing that experience, right? So if we're siloing information, we don't recognize that actually, if you're interested in ed tech, there are things in mind, brain, and teaching that you need to know about or should know about if you want people to be able to engage effectively with technology. So there are connections across areas of interest that you might not, that might not be obvious. So here you have the opportunity to explore those connections. So that first summer will be the first opportunity to take either an area of interest or an elective, other kind of elective course. And then, but really you'll see there's a note here that there's only 2 summers of AOI or elective courses that are required for graduation. So there's ways of doing this. You can take the first summer off. You could opt to take an area of interest course, just 1. You could opt to do 2. Then you could have the next 2 summers off. So it really depends on what's going to work for you, what's going to work for your schedule, what's going to work for your rhythm. But it's going to give you time during the summer to really work also on your own research work. Note that there's a lot of working on your research work within the courses, but we do not rely on the courses for that. It's just too limiting for you. There's always more research to read. So it's really, really important to not wait to be told what to do, but really to take control of your research journey. And then ask yourself, if I read enough, is there more? Are there things that I might be missing? And this is where the systems thinking is going to really help you to identify other things to consider. So that first year, when you first come in the fall, the first course is the doctoral dossier research course. So this is like your group advising. So we also have moved away from a one-on-one advisor model. And there are many reasons for that, but I think some of the most relevant reasons are because we have so many students in this program, we've had to, over the years in the old program, hire a lot of adjunct advisors for students because there's only so many of us faculty, of us full-time faculty. With this model, all students will be advised by full-time faculty, but it's more of a group advising model. The other things one of the other things we kind of noticed over the years is that students would also, kind of depend on the advisor to kind of tell them what to do. And so we actually don't, we want you to make your determinations, right? Advising is just some advising. It's not, this is what you need to do. And you'll get input from other instructors. You'll want input from other people. And you'll want to synthesize that input just as you do the research literature when you start reading it, to determine the choices that you're going to make in your own work. But you will have that first doctoral dossier research instructor that you have will actually be your, what for the acronym DDR, instructor group advisor for the duration of the program. We have not yet decided how students are going to be paired with particular instructors and particular faculty members in their DDR sections. More on that as soon as we figure that out. But note that you know, we're going to be taking into consideration your POP and faculty members' expertise as much as we can. That's not always a perfect match. It never has been, even with the one-on-one advising model. And that's okay, because we're all learners in this program, all of us. So, and that means us as faculty too. Otherwise, the first year, you're also going to take socially responsible research, which is essentially kind of like an intro to research methods. Understanding social problems in the spring and critical theory in the spring. And so again, that first year, scholarship of integration is the project, and we're moving away also from doing school. This is the other thing. You know, people, our students who come here are extremely smart and are very used to getting good grades. And also, we're not going to be giving you grades. That's also a new part of the program. We are going to be taking an ungrading approach. And part of that is because we have found over the years that even at the doctoral level, students can get very focused on kind of doing school instead of really challenging themselves and digging in. I mean, they get there, but like there's a lot of doing school, and that's not students' fault. It's really kind of the conditioning in a lot of ways of education in general. And so we really want everybody more focusing on learning as a holistic process and really focusing on that process. And so there's going to be a lot of fostering of that and encouraging of that, and encouraging y'all to take some risks, like think outside the box, and don't think about like, is this right? Is this right? Is this the right answer? Because a lot of times, you know, if you ask a faculty member, is this the right answer? It can be, well, it depends. And it depends on a lot of things. So that's part of a big part of year one, and also moving away from solution thinking to examining assumptions, really thinking critically and systemically, and exploring the problem. And then you'll notice that our program learning objectives are on the right-hand side. And you'll notice that there's a black arrow that goes from the top down to the bottom. And that's because, you know, those first PLOs, 1 and 2, they don't just happen in the first year. They're very foundational to the first year, but they're ongoing throughout the program. But you'll notice that the PLOs kind of build every year. So in year 2, you're taking your second DDR course with your same faculty member. And then there's disciplinary approaches to education, multiple perspectives on teaching and learning, and research methods 1. And now we're moving away from exploring the problem to demonstrating application of research or examining practices and assessments. And then year 3, You'll complete project 2, begin project 3. You'll have your 3rd doctoral dossier research course, an evaluation course, multicultural ed, research methods 2. And then we just have listed what your choices are for your projects. That last year is going to be a wrap up. And again, we did our best to sprinkle the opportunities for areas of interest and electives throughout. But the doctoral dossier research courses, the blue courses and the green courses, these are core courses. The green courses are actually completely brand new courses. The blue courses have been existing courses that are being significantly revamped. So, and our PLOs, so that first year is about becoming a self-reflective, social justice-oriented learner and analyzing and critiquing through social justice and systems lenses. The second year, the PLOs are emerging expertise in at least one major topic and communicate effectively to diverse audiences regarding research. The third year, we're still PLO 1, 2, 4, and 6, and 3. It's about really more applying relevant methods to problems and the integration of research and practice knowledge. And then that last year, again, it's still all of these things. Those PLOs at the bottom are the focus, but it's, as you can see, it's like a building every year. So do we have questions? That was a lot. Yes, Diamond.
Good evening, everyone, and to you, Dr. Shaw. Question in regards to the dossier flow of the program. I know that you said we only really managed to take 2 summers worth of electives or areas of interest. Are we allowed to continue, if we want to continue doing more electives throughout the program, are we encouraged to do so, or do we only have to stop at just 2 summers? And what is the difference between areas of interest and the elective, or can they be the same?
Well, yeah, that's a really great question. So they could, yeah, they could. Well, so we have some electives, for instance, like professional development. That's one elective that we have. I can't think of an example off the top of my head. Dr. Eith or other doctors here, do you have other examples of other electives that are outside of an area of interest?
The course that's about school continuous improvement in schools, Bob Belvance's course.
Right. Okay. So those have been typically designated as electives, but honestly, if you wanted to, let's say the 2 electives that we mentioned, you're not interested in, but you want to take some additional area of interest courses, you can do that. Yeah. And I think there's also some flexibility I should mention too. So if you wanted to take an area of interest course all 3 summers, let's say, and then maybe you want that last fall to have only 1 course, you could do that too.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Do we have other questions? Well, how about this? While you all are thinking of questions, maybe let's let.
Can I interrupt you for just a second? I think
yeah.
she has a question.
Oh.
I did. Good evening, everyone. My question, thank you, Diamond, for asking what you asked. I had the same question, but my other question is around like the amount of time we'll get to spend with our DDR. So is that like you would schedule appointments with that person? How could you give me an example of how that would work for our first semester? Just so I have a sense of time and commitment and how we're going to schedule things.
That's really more instructor dependent. So there's flexibility around things.
Okay.
So, you know, and it's not necessarily the case that the instructor is going to meet with, let's say there's 12 students in a DDR class, you have to meet with all 12 of you at the same time. So maybe there's, it might be that 3 of you have similar POPs, for instance, so maybe that meeting could happen, but there's also going to be individual meetings that can happen. So that's just something you're going to work out with your instructor, with the faculty member. But note that, faculty members are they're very flexible. I think for some, though, I will say this, weekends can get a little iffy. So not everybody can have, because they have families and that kind of thing, but we're used to late night meetings and that kind of thing. So we really try to work, around your schedule. Okay, let's see. We have a question.
I can take that if you'd like.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure.
Maybe state what the question is for the.
Yeah, sure.
Sorry.
So the question in the chat is about it's if JHU actually, or if School of Ed actually provides licenses for tools like in vivo and SPSS. So this is a question that is more, it's a yes and answer for you. So yes, they do. It's in a virtual desktop format. And I would highly encourage you to consider purchasing a graduate license when it's appropriate. You probably will not need that until your RM1 class in your year 2. So it is available in the online virtual desktop, but I will say that from from folks who've been students in the past, it is a very clunky approach. There's a certain number of licenses, so if more people are on, you might not be able to get on. And when it saves down, it's really unclear where it's saving to. So you could do a ton of work and then feel like and not know where it's saved to, and then have lost all the work that you just did. So my particular in vivo, not as much, but when it comes to SPSS, I would highly encourage you to consider. It's a $99 grad pack license. Usually I think it's less now. You can buy it semester by instead of by year, but I think it's $99 to invest for the a number, like I think it's a 3-year graduate license.
Thank you. So we have a question about average class size. It could be 10, or sorry, like 12, 15, I think is more average. Someone is asking about what to expect at orientation. So we do have orientation modules that you will go through online, and then we'll have an in-person orientation that in-person in July is much more about coming together and community building, and we'll do some systems thinking practice together and some talking about your POPs and that kind of thing. But there is a lot of reading and discussion activities in the orientation. It's really important to take time during the orientation to really consider how the work is going to fit with your schedule. And I say that because we are not able to provide individual programs where a student takes one class at a time. So sometimes what does happen is that students will come in and they'll start to realize, like, oh, this is more work than I thought, or I didn't realize, or now I've got a promotion or something like this, and now my job is. So that's, just it is important to look at the readings, and it's not an exact, like, this is how it's going to be when you're in the program, but it'll start to give you a feel for kind of the reading involved. So there's different modules that you'll go through. There's some social justice modules. There's some research methods modules. There's things like logistically, like how to do searches in the library and that kind of thing. and I'm stuttering because we're still working on the orientation modules right now, but that's a general kind of generally what's going to happen. But you'll have opportunities for some online discussions too. And also we will be having like some huddle times like this, where we'll get together throughout the summer and talk about the program and, you know, the things that you're thinking about and your questions and everything else.
Can I bring you back, Dr. Shaw, to Rebecca's question around registering for classes in order, and if you're able to take more courses, and if by taking more courses you can then graduate earlier?
There's not going to be a graduation earlier because the final defense has to happen in that final DDR class. So this is a cohort model. So you will be graduating with your cohort. Let's see. Yes, and you do have to follow the order. Where it says AOI or elective, then you don't have to follow a specific order. But for the core courses, you do. Okay, your fourth question, Rebecca, is it allowed for EdD students at JHU to publish their doctoral dossier paper? Okay, so here's the thing. This is, I think, I love this too about the changes that we've made here. So if you want to publish in a scholarly journal, you can do a project or two or all of them in scholarly writing. And then you can prepare each or one or two or three of those manuscripts for publication in a peer-reviewed journal. That is something that students in previous years have not had time to do because they're working on their dissertation. And then you have to go through this extremely painful process of working on that dissertation and uploading that thing to the library. And then you got to go back to it and you got to pull out some academic articles. And it's really hard to do because you're kind of like, I'm so over this at this point. You know, I've worked on this for years now. I want to work on kind of a new problem. But in this new program, you have the opportunity to publish while you're in the program. So that's something you can absolutely do. Let's see. Okay. So I guess we had a question about the semester format, spring. I'm not sure I understand the question. There are two semesters, there's a fall and a spring semester. They're 15 weeks. And during that time, you'll take two courses. And then there's a nice long winter break between the fall and spring semester. That really helps. So hopefully, I hope I answered that question. Okay, so the Himanshi, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. So you're asking about credits. So if you're short credits, we've had students who have been, it looks like you're one class short. We have had students who have, yeah, okay. So Tanya, do you want to speak to your experience with that?
We both did actually. Mary Fran and I both were in the same boat. And what I think Mary Fran ended up taking a course outside of JHU to make up for that. I took additional credits in the doc program to make up for that. So the program was just really flexible about how we made up those three credits.
I would just make sure to, if you do a course outside of Hopkins, just make sure before you sign up and do the work that will be transferred over.
Right.
I went through Cal State, Humboldt, and I had it approved before. But if cost matters to you, those are things to consider too.
Okay, then we have a question about applications for endowed need-based scholarships. Let's see, would that be released by April 17th? You know what? I actually am not sure of the answer to that question. So the best thing to do is I'm going to put in the chat the email that you can use to have questions like this answered. And Rachel Gibbons, our academic program coordinator, is behind that email. So she's really excellent at responding to folks in a very timely manner. Let's see. For the in-person in July, what is the dress code? So I don't know that we have one. I never. Just be comfortable and come and enjoy yourself. That's really all we care about. Pick up some JHU swag, although at the bookstore, we'll be close to the bookstore. We'll also have some there for you. And yes, so we will be sending out information about booking rooms at the hotel, which is we're having orientation / residency. So it's orientation for y'all and residency for returning students at a hotel that is right across the street from Hopkins. And so we've actually never had it at this space before. We've always had it like in other part. I live in Los Angeles, so I don't I don't know exactly what, like Harbor Point or something, or the other parts of Baltimore where we've had them before. But students asked this year that we be closer to campus. So it's the fancier hotels are kind of in a different area. So this is a less fancy hotel, but we're all going to be together and we'll be close to campus. And that's the important thing. So we will send out a link about the hotel and the booking rate very soon. Okay, in terms of flying in, I don't know what MTN, what's some in terms of flying in, BWI or MTN? BWI. Yeah. Okay. Okay. That was answered. Okay.
There was a question on orientation up here, way at the top, Stanton. What should we expect with orientation? I don't know if you mean residency or orientation.
I think yeah, that was what I was talking about earlier in terms of the readings and stuff over.
Oh yeah. But
Yeah.
I wondered, yeah, I just wondered if they meant residency instead of. Not sure.
Yeah, probably the letters we also mentioned the summer orientation, not just the orientation residency. Yeah. Okay, so in terms of funding and scholarship opportunities, so that is not something that we at the program level handle. You're always welcome to reach out to student affairs to see what kinds of opportunities there are. Unfortunately, I don't have, I don't, Dr. Ives, do you have any other suggestions? Yeah, so I don't, I mean, I funded this through loans, so that's what I did. The dates for the in-person orientation, those dates, we do have those dates. Those dates are, just have to, Monday, July 17th and 18th. Okay, in terms of completing work ahead of time, yeah, so I'm not really sure how to answer that question, to be honest, because we have had a lot of students who, well, not a lot. We've had a few students who have wanted to complete things ahead of time, and I don't know that that has really worked out well in a way. I mean, it's possible we can, you know, give you the syllabus ahead of time, but there's not a lot of like textbooks assignments. So, and, you know, the readings come with more context. They come with presentations. There's synchronous meetings like this. And if you can't join those meetings, they're recorded, often recorded and provided for later viewing. So I'm hesitant to be like, yes, you can work ahead, because it can be difficult to do that. Does any of the other doctors have any input on that?
I would just say if there's my thought would be just to talk with your instructor. Sometimes with your, you know, if your instructor, you will see all the assignments through, you know, when your course opens, you'll know what all the assignments are for the course. You just won't have the discussion board. So sometimes I've had a similar situation where folks are like, you know, we know that they have a, you know, a life-changing event happening at a certain point in their semester. And so I think as long as you're open with your instructor and continue to communicate with them, we will do everything we can to work with you and give you some suggestions around that. But I think, you know, on a global scale, it's a little bit harder to say like, oh, here's what you would want to do to work ahead. The course, and Dr. Shaw, correct me if I'm wrong with this, but I do believe that what happens is that the courses tend to open module by module. So that I don't think would change as much, but your instructor would be able to say, oh, okay, like we can let go of some of those discussion posts, or we could let go of some of those classroom activities. So it's just really about making sure that you're in communication with your instructor.
I would, oh, go ahead. I was going to piggyback on Dr. Ith. I have some third-year students right now in similar situations where they needed to work ahead. They knew they had a conference or a work trip coming up. And just like Dr. Ith said, some of the sessions are locked until you finish one session, even though you have all the assignments laid out ahead of time. This course I'm working on right now, our students, each of the assignments builds to the final. And so if they work too far ahead, they won't necessarily get the feedback that they might actually want for that final project. But yet still, there are plenty of opportunities to work ahead, but I would say speak directly to your instructor and the TA.
Yeah, communication is key, and nobody bites here. Nobody. So just and the instructors are always willing to work with students. I mean, we understand that you're not full-time students, you're professionals working in your field. So if you communicate with us, it's all good. There was a question. Sorry, the chat's getting long and I think I'm getting lost in it. Okay, there was a question. Oh, right. There was a question about course books being available online, or do hard copies of books have to be purchased? And the concern is that, you know, for international students. Yeah, it's going to depend on the course. And like Dr. Park put in here in the chat, there's a lot that's provided to you in e-reserves, so that will be provided in a course. So sometimes you know, if there are specific chapters of books that we want you to read, we'll get those from the library and give them to you that way. And a lot of times too, sometimes you can find online versions of the books, of the texts as well yourself. So
if I could interject, I think, I don't know if this is true across the board. I know DAE requires the book. I know the research methods course, some of the research methods courses will require a book, but you'll have those in enough time that the book list can go out in enough time for you to order from whatever your preferred choice of book depository would be. They're all available from the book, not just from the bookstore at Hopkins. In fact, I would probably not do that. I would go to someplace where you might be able to get a used copy. But there's tons of resources available for you, and you should be able to have them shipped. So far, we really haven't had a lot of challenges with students, even across the globe. And we've had students literally across the globe. So you might need 2 to 3 weeks to get them, but they would be able to get there in time.
In terms that we have a question about what are the tech requirements? You just need a computer. You need to have access to Zoom. You'll all be given Zoom accounts. Microsoft Word. I think that's it. There may be not so much required, but suggested for systems thinking. There may be a subscription to Plectica, which you don't have to worry about now, but it's like $36 a year for students. It's not, but you don't have to do that. So there's, you just want to be able to, have access to your courses and be able to upload your papers in a way that they can be, that instructors can provide feedback. Yeah, the document that I showed you all, happy to send that to you all as well. Let's see. Is it acceptable to have a POP that amalgamates more than one specialization area? Yeah, yeah, that's for sure. Okay, so classes, so someone's asking about ungrading, essentially. Does that mean all classes are pass-fail and or based on more on attendance? Classes are going to be pass-fail. There may be we haven't fully decided if it's just pass-fail or if it's going to be like pass with distinction, or it may just be pass-fail. But it's really more on, you're just going to be getting a lot of feedback. So what we want to see is that when you're providing work, is that you're incorporating that feedback into future work. That's what we want to see. Okay, so will the professors upload all course videos and materials on the platform, or will they upload the resources on a weekly basis? So everything's always uploaded in advance. The modules are just opened 1 week or one session at a time. So we as faculty, we provide content, but we have instructional designers who put that content onto Canvas for us. And that's the platform that we are now using. Okay, so classes are asynchronous. This is an asynchronous program, right? But there are synchronous components. Do you have to attend all the synchronous components? You don't. But there is going to be group work with your peers. So you may have to figure out getting together with a small group to work on a project, that kind of thing. But if there are class sync sessions, like I said, you don't have to attend, or there'll be other opportunities to participate. So if there are discussions, like class discussions, like in my courses, I hold salons that are synchronous like this, but then there's a lot of students who can't participate. So then they participate in the discussion through Flip and they do videos instead. And then we do what we actually don't record the salons because I also put folks in breakout groups and that kind of thing, but we do record the most salient points on a Padlet that we then share with the folks who can't attend. So we do as much cross communication as possible, you know, across different kinds of modalities. Do we see, I want to give, I just also want to give Dr. Satchel and Dr. Park a few moments to kind of talk about student support from both of their perspectives. So I'm going to step away from the chat for just a minute. Dr. Satchel, do you want to go first and and talk about the writing clinic?
Sure. Happy to do that. So I support our writing clinic with Dr. Laura Quaynar. The writing clinic is it's a bunch of resources that are available to all of the students in the program. We do monthly sync sessions on different topics, such as, you know, maybe APA style or academic writing or how to use peer feedback, lots of different topics. And as we talked about earlier, those sessions are recorded for folks who are unable to attend. And we post them in Canvas for your review. We also have a variety of resources. We just, you know, for example, posted some non-traditional type of dissertation. So people who've done books instead of a dissertation, or people who've done music albums and you know, different kinds of ways of disseminating information other than dissertation. So those kinds of resources are available. We also offer one-on-one appointments with students. If you just want to get some feedback on your writing, your organization, if you need some help or some guidance, we have office hours that you can sign up for, or if those office hours don't work for you, we'll schedule individually with you. And we also host peer writing groups at least once a semester. And it's just a time for you to come together and, you know, if you just need some accountability, if you need some support. Mary Fran and I wrote together many mornings, especially at the end, and our dissertation topics are very different. It wasn't about, you know, providing feedback or anything at that point. It was just, I need to write and I need you to hold me accountable for coming and sitting down and writing. And we just get on Zoom and write for an hour and then go on about our day. So we help to organize and host those kinds of writing sessions for students at least once a semester. So those are just some of the things that we offer at the writing clinic. You know, happy to take a question or two, but also want to leave some space for Dr. Park to share as well.
You want to go ahead, Dr. Park, while we're waiting for some questions?
Okay. Sure. I highly encourage you when you're ready to join those sessions with Dr. Satchel that you do so. One of the things that my job as a program mentor is simply to support students at all levels, at all different phases that they're in the program. I have a lot of informal meetings where somebody just wants to talk through things. They want to make some plans about where they're going. They have questions about their research that they want to pursue. And I'm just an additional support system in the program. So anytime you're feeling a little stressed, you need some guidance, you just want to sit and talk, or maybe you just want a buddy to be there on Zoom and hold you accountable, I'm super happy to do that. And Tanya and I finished this program in the fall, but we also have spent a lot of time supporting students just 1 year below us. One thing that I learned at residency our first summer was that you need to reach out and make connections with folks. Like Dr. Shaw and Dr. Ith said, there will be classes where you partner with other people. I was randomly partnered with 2 women my first semester. I probably still message them once a week now, and we're all done with the program. So communication is key. Reach out to TAs, reach out to professors, make friends across cohorts, put yourself out there. In real life, I'm a hardcore introvert, but you got to just like push that aside and make friends in this program, because they're really, even though we are asynchronous, it really is about connection. And Tanya is absolutely right. Find your people, because you'll still be friends with them for a long time.
I'd also add to that though, Mary Fran, so when we had our first residency, I think one of the first things we did is we started this WhatsApp, group. I will tell you that's a great way of keeping your connections, but don't spin there. If you have a question, ask your program mentor, ask your instructors, your WhatsApp group. Those folks are there to support you and be your friends, but they probably won't have the answers to the question. So use that space wisely, and just make sure that you're going to the folks that can actually answer your questions. I think we learned that real quick, right, Mary?
We
And
do have
maybe
a
we had our
Slack
own
channel that
WhatsApp group.
we do have a Slack channel that we use for each of the cohorts as well. So it gives a space for you all to be able to, to have it feel a little more informal. So you don't have to, write out this email and everything. So you can, if you have the question, a question, just go to Slack and I'm on it. Dr. Ith is on it. Dr. Park, and our 2 admin folks, Raven and Rachel. But always go to your own instructors when it's a question about your course. Always go to your instructors.
The current question in the chat, Dr. Shaw, is about the executive sponsor and what role does it play in the final project?
None, really, honestly. The executive sponsor is just kind of an artifact of the old program where students had to do 2 empirical projects in their context, which is not actually a common thing in a dissertation, interestingly enough. So what the executive sponsor was supposed to do was kind of be the person who knew that you were going to do research in your context and collect data in your context, and so supported that. That's it. But given the way the program is designed, it's not necessarily the case that people will be collecting data within their own context. And you can also, you also may want to be collecting data like in your broader field, not necessarily in your own context. And then the other nice thing about not being tied to having to collect data in your own context and therefore need an executive sponsor is that you might change jobs. And that happens too, right? So your work here is not dependent so much on your job, your specific job. Yeah. Do we?
I was just going to add to that if that's okay. And then I realized that my water bottle's in front of my microphone, and then it was just chaos. Sorry, my mouse is going everywhere. I was just going to say, in some instances, I for those of you who might be in Maryland, and depending on where you are throughout the rest of the U.S., we know this too. But in certain places in Maryland, certain counties won't let you actually collect data in your own context. You have to go somewhere else. So if you happen to be in one of those areas, we have become pretty adept at helping you think through those opportunities for learning about other places. So, don't fret, and we will still be able to help you through that.
Okay, do we have any other like last minute kind of burning questions?
When will we, sorry,
Go ahead,
You
Sheree.
go ahead.
Oh,
when will we get like the next email that shares like who our people will be, who our support staff, like who can we streamline all our questions to, or should we just continue to communicate with you all?
so you can feel free to communicate with us, but if it's like logistical stuff about the program,
Mhm.
you want to go to that soe.edd@jhu.edu, because that's also, we want you to develop that habit of going to that email. Okay, so because when you're here, you know, in the program, that's also an email that you will use, right? So it's like when students are like, how do I upload my dissertation to the library? I don't know. I haven't done that in years. Go ahead and go ask the soe.edd, right? These logistical kinds of things, you know, but if you're and sometimes if you're unsure, the other thing is too, is that if you're unsure who to ask, the soe.edd, Rachel, she will reach out to other folks and get you in touch with the right people. So that's your base.
My
Diamond,
question,
did you have a question?
my question was kind of along the same line as Cherie, to kind of piggyback off of it. Will there ever be a moment where we may need to talk to the cabinet, like the dean or somebody, in, you know, in an event, or is it just basically you all do the main communication? But you just answered the question.
Yeah, you're going to be communicating, because the dean doesn't really understand. He doesn't, I mean, he knows what our program does, but he doesn't understand the ins and outs. You know, he's doing dean stuff. Very, very, very important dean stuff. Yeah, but you'll get to meet the dean. He'll come to, you know, if you come to the in-person orientation, he will be there for sure. Yeah. All right. Well, okay. So thank you all for coming. It's great to see you all. And if we'll send you out the recording, we'll send you out the PDF that I showed you with the graphics. And yeah, reach out. You know who to reach out with you if you have any questions. And we're really excited to get to know all of you.